Jon, welcome back, mate.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming back. And,
That's all right. That's all right.
As you know, the videos that we did, especially on TikTok, when I clipped it up, it just went mega viral. You know, there's a real appetite for this stuff. People want to know about it.
In the millions.
You've had several videos in the millions. Yeah.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, it's when I first started doing this. I never expected anything. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect, and all of a sudden, it went mad from the start. I mean, the only thing, and I'm over it now, was my uber sensitivity towards getting trolled, and it's one of them things. It's just part of the.
It's one of those things where you just naturally attract the trolls when you go near the truth, I think.
Yep.
Because there's always going to be bad people out there.
And people are jealous. My subject matter, very raw. And there's a lot of people that have been affected by child abuse. There was a study done. There was a conservative estimate that it affects 1 in 4 people, 25%. And there was a family court judge turned around and he objected. He said, "No, you're fine. This is probably 1 in 3, 30%.
That have been abused.
Yeah, that have suffered some sort of abuse in their childhood.
Right.
So it is going to affect a lot of people.
And the way they react to it is differently. Some people want to slam you for talking about it because in a way they're damaged and they want to damage other people. So I've noticed there's a bit of that.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you've got to look at the psychology of this, that when someone is living in a state of pain and you've got that innate unhappiness, that they only feel normalised when everyone else is unhappy. So they'll become friends with you when you're in a traumatic bad situation because it makes them feel normal.
Yeah.
But when you're happy, they hate it. They hate it. And I can always remember in my early years in the police, one detective inspector really took umbrage with me, and I found out what his problem was, and he said, "You smile too much." He just didn't like the fact that I smiled. He just didn't like it.
They used to call me Smiler at one of my companies because I guess they didn't like it.
Yeah, they don't like it. They hate it. They hate it when you're happy.
Yeah.
And, this is what we got to do. We got to shed light.
Yeah.
And the only way of doing that is to expose this. No one's clean. No one's free from sin, as it were. Everyone has got a past. And it's only really when you take ownership of what you've done in life can you actually be healed. This is all about healing.
Yeah. Well, we're all going through some kind of level of trauma, I would say, but some worse than others, obviously. But there's always some trauma in everyone that needs healing and needs to get expressed somehow.
It was only really when the police never ever got to the crux of it. It was basically an old school battle between the goodies and the baddies. And sometimes the lines would get blurred where the goodies would become the baddies and things like that. But on the whole, they weren't interested in where someone had come from. They weren't interested in their background.
Yeah.
And the justice system on the whole wasn't interested either. But now when I've stepped out and I haven't got the protection that the police used to afford me, and I haven't got the power that I had with the police, I had an incredible amount of power. If I wanted to look at something, investigate something, I could go and get a warrant. And I could bring the wrath of God down on anyone who said, "You're not coming in." I said, "Well, we are coming in. And if it takes one of us, 2 of us, or 30,000 of us with dogs, with shields, with sticks and with guns, we're coming in." And that's taken it to the massive extent. But that was a resource that I had available. I've now got none of that. I go into very, very precarious environments now with very, very damaged people, very angry, hate-fueled people, especially towards anything that even airs on, the establishment. Please, and I've always come out again, but I have to use a lot of diplomacy, and I have to then understand the journey people have gone on. I'm not saying there's some people that have been badly hurt and they've gone on to be bad people, and I don't like them, but there's others that are incredibly good, loving, nice, decent human beings, and I want to help them. I want to help them overcome their trauma and realise there is another way, and suicide and prison and alcoholism and drug addiction and women beating and beating the kids and all that is not the answer. There is another way, and unfortunately these are some of the pitfalls that some people fall in, not all.
Yeah, but some have gone straight after. But
it takes... there'll always be a scar.
Yeah.
There will always be a scar. You don't get away with it scot-free. You don't. You are going to harbour those wounds but they'll either be visible or they won't. I mean, some people, they might look all right to the outside world, but talk to their partners, talk to their wives, talk to their husbands.
And children, maybe.
And kids.
See how the children are doing.
And you'll realise these are deep suffering individuals that have to put up with it. You know, one woman, she says, you know, when you go, because her husband was badly abused as a kid, and I'd go around and spend time and talk with this guy, and she said, I have to pick up the pieces. He'll go on 3-day drink benders. He'll wake up in the middle of the night screaming and run around the flat shouting. You know, one guy said, in the middle of the night, I've run down the road naked, screaming and shouting, grab my missus by the throat because it's the trauma coming back. And, you know, both of them were men in their 60s. And they were in kids' homes in their early years. So, and the system never put it right. Prison never put it right. Remand centres, Borstal, short, they never put it right.
So they're like ticking time bombs, basically. As soon as that stuff starts happening, it will come out later enough, unless they're able to be conscious of it and then try and work through it and try and heal it themselves consciously.
But the other thing, John, what we've got to understand is that when things like Savile, a massive trigger warning should have been put on when they did programmes about Savile, because that really did bring things to the surface, but also it brought a huge sigh of relief to people, because they're like, I was right. I knew that this person was wrong and no one believed us. It's not just him, there's others. Yeah. You know, and it's like, we were right. We weren't mad. We weren't bad. We weren't sad. You know, they made us all three of them things.
Yeah, I remember you saying on the last one, it's like, God bless Jimmy Savile. And it kind of makes sense. Like, not because of what he did, but it created that domino effect that allowed other people to come out, and it wasn't rubbish straight away. Yeah. Actually, another one on that is Gary Glitter.
Yeah.
So Gary Glitter recently came out. I think he did half his sentence, didn't he? He was meant to be 16 years. He came out after 8.
Portland, when he was in the rehabilitation.
Do you want to talk about Gary Glitter? What you've
his real name's Paul Gadd. I did have, unfortunately, for legal reasons, I can't share it here, but some very, very close information on his offending, because I was working in the same building as the sex offenders team that used to register him in Westminster, and so I would hear things. I'd be told, because one of the registry officers knew me personally. And he told me what, and it never got disclosed. So I've got to be careful, because there are people that monitor a lot of what I say, and I do get threats from solicitors and all sorts constantly.
Do you?
Coming through. Yeah, I'm going to sue Jon Wedger. I'm going to sue this. You know, so I get it all the time.
That's why for a lot of people, they're always saying things like, you know, name names. And then you name the names, they're like, where's the proof? It's you can't win with these people. And then if you just give the name, they go, right, you're down for defamation and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. So in the end, that's the reason why we can't say what we want to say. Yeah. You know, we wish we could, but that's just how it goes.
You don't name people and places, and that's a golden rule. And they try and set you up. So there was, I'll get on to Gary Glitter one sec, but there was, I got contacted by a journalist from a national newspaper and wanted my opinion on the arrest of a guy called Wilfred Wong, who's a good guy. And he's one of the leading investigators into satanic ritual abuse. He's currently serving a very big sentence for kidnap. Things went very wrong for him. You know, and I just wish him well. And anyway, there was a team of investigative journalists. They were out to do a hatchet job on those that support Wilfred Wong, and they were out to do it on me.
Because that's another thing that when the trolls come out, they'll bring that one out as well, through association with this guy.
Of course.
But it seems as though you mentioned before it was like an attempt of to rescue a kid.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I stand by Wilfred.
Yeah,
it's not how I would have done things.
Yeah.
I would never advocate breaking the law. I think you should always work within the law. He went outside of it and he got caught. So I don't know what they're moaning at. If they're pro-Satanists and they're against him, well, you know, what result for you lot? This poor man's now behind bars, you know, and will spend a good percentage of his life now behind bars in the autumn years of his life. But he's an incredible individual, Wilfred, and I stand by him. He's a good man. He's helped a lot of people.
So what was that all about then? Like, how did he get arrested? And
well, we can only go on what the press is saying, because the court had, I think it was a Section 34. There's an order that gets put on whenever there's an anonymity child abuse case goes up, which this is what it was. So there was a child that was involved, subject to the anonymity. So the court was closed to the public. There was only certain members of the jury, the press allowed in there, and it was during the lockdown thing as well. So the amount of information that came out was very, very limited. Wilfred couldn't tell me too much because the prison operate the PIN system, which is a private phone company run it, and they're all monitored. So he had to be careful what he told me in correspondence and on the phone. So I didn't know too much, but
you can only go what you know about him, the character assessment of the guy.
Yeah, and I know who the mother is. That there's a child, that there was some sort of acrimony between the mother and the father. The mother is alleging that the child is being exposed to harm because he was residing with the father. I think there's a family court-ish thing going on. There was allegations that the father, as far as I'm aware, was exposing the kid to maybe ritualistic abuse. And social services were involved as well. I think the kid was being put in some sort of respite care or some sort of foster placement. I'm not too sure on it. And I think by the sounds of it, the mother had corralled people to help her child from allegedly future abuse.
So he stepped in. Wilfred stepped in to try and stop it.
Wilfred stepped in, and from there, a group was formed. And they had a plan. And by the looks of it, it was to take the kid away from the alleged danger and place him elsewhere, whether it's in this country or was outside. I'm not too sure, because first I knew about it was through the national press. Anyway, what came out from the evidence in court was that there was, I think in Wrexham in North Wales, the child was with a foster placement. So it was a foster mum and her child in a car. They went into a garage to get some fuel. Wilfred, I think, and a group of others, had a driver and mother maybe, I'm not too sure. They pulled up. The mother tried to take the child. The foster mother weren't allowing it. Wilfred then allegedly pulled a knife, had a knife. He disabled the car by stabbing the tyres, and then they said that he threatened the woman with the knife and took the child. So
that's not good. That's not good optics, is it?
No, it's terrible. And so you've got a robbery with a weapon. So it's an armed robbery. It's an armed aggravated kidnapping. So whatever way you look at it, there was going to be double figures anyway, with the best mitigation in the world. Looks like Wilfred went not guilty. Again, I don't understand the rationale. That'll be up to him to explain that one, because it's been so limited. And they got caught. They headed then down the M1. I'm not sure if there was a car change or what. They had spotters were put on way to make sure that they weren't being followed. There were two guys that were landscape gardeners were putting up a fence. They witnessed it all. I think they called the police. And of course, we got the ANPR system now. So smart motorways work on the ANPR system. That's why they're smart.
What's the ANPR?
It's automatic number plate readers.
Right.
So before it would need the police to put up a number plate within the county force and then share it nationally if they knew it was going to go across county borders, Now it goes onto the number plate reading system, and there's cameras everywhere. And so any car of notice will ping up, whether it's dynamic and it's as it's happening, real time, or it's later on. There'll be a database where the car was seen here, here, and here. And I think it was tracked along the M6 onto the M1, all through the smart motorway system, ANPR, and then it got to Northampton, and the police managed then to intercept it. And they had to intercept it with armed police because it was an armed situation. And the child was at risk. So the police acted right. There was rumours that people were saying it was special forces involved in all this. No, because how they acted was protocol. So when I was on the child abuse units, we would get abductions, and everything was real time, fast time, dynamic, and we would do the same. All ports would be alerted, every force would be alerted, and you could narrow it down very quickly, and identify your target and the location, and put a hit in very, very quickly. So it worked for the police. I think it worked to plan. And Wilfred ended up, I think he's got a 17-year prison sentence. Big, it's a big sentence. I think it's far too big for what he's done. Everyone involved has got a huge sentence.
But it's all about intent. If he's trying to do it for a good reason.
Yeah, of course.
But they don't see it that way, do they?
I don't know whether...
If that's true, I'm just saying, if that is true...
I don't know whether he used that in his mitigation. He went not guilty. Would it have been better? I think the mother went guilty, and of course she will qualify for a 30% discount straight away. So Home Office guidelines, if you go guilty, at the earliest opportunity, you qualify for a 30% discount.
Discount as in taking off your sentence?
Yeah. So she's going to get 30, she'll do 20. And at that 20, she'll serve half 10, so she could be out. But if you don't, then you're going to serve 15, So that's how it'll work. So it's a huge amount of time taken out. But again, I don't know too much about it. It's one of them things, and there were some strange things happened around it. One of them was one of the co-defendants was found dead in his cell. I think the first weekend that the men were remanded in custody. They said it was a suicide. He had a bag over his head and was suffocated. I don't know whether that's the truth or not. We can only go on what they tell us, We can assume many things, but sometimes the truth and rumours are two different things. So, you could say that, the Satanist cabal had all brought in, but you just don't know.
You don't know. A lot of these tend to end up with suicide, I've noticed,
Well, I think when people do get near the truth, the system does step in. There were rumours that I was at risk of being killed, and that they were raised in Parliament, them rumours, so there was some sort of substance to them. And I think when you look at things like Lady Diana, was she near to exposing something of national security?
Well, actually, on that, we'll come back to Gary Glitter in a little bit, but let's talk about Jill Dando, because Jill Dando's an example of someone that was getting near the truth, I think. Yeah. She obviously worked for Crime Watch, so if people don't know, Crime Watch was a popular TV show where they would create reconstructions of crimes, and then they'd ask the public if they could help in supporting evidence or, finding the people that they obviously made the reconstructions about. Jill Dando, as far as I was aware, she was tapping in, this is my own, from my research, she was potentially tapping into a paedophile ring that even went to the heart of the BBC, maybe even higher up, What's your opinion on Jill Dando? What happened there?
I think she made a comment about Cliff Richard as well.
Right.
I think, I'm not sure, but from my memory serves me well, I think she made a comment saying he's not the Christian man everyone thinks he is. So again, and...
That's not enough to get a bullet in the head, though, is it? Do you think?
It depends on how right she was. And how. Bear in mind. You look, Cliff Richard links to the Cray twins.
Did
he? Yeah. He was connected with them. I've heard things about that guy, and again, I can't share it because he sued in the past, and he may well sue again. And considering the coverage you're getting now, I don't think that would be the poignant thing to say.
Yeah.
However, I would say his real name is Harry Webb. Maybe in the archives of crime, there might be a Harry Webb with the same date of birth as him that might have convictions. It might be worth checking out. I might be right, I might be wrong, but it might be worth looking into. But Jill Dando is interesting. Because I worked with the senior investigating officer for that. I worked on the same unit for a while, and he used to give a lecture to detectives. And what happened was that 23 ambulances were dispatched to her front garden, right, where she'd been shot. So she'd been shot in her front garden. Again, a well-known celebrity, I'm with you. I think she knew what was going on within this bizarre sort of secret society of the BBC and child abuse. And 23 ambulances turned up, double crewed ambulances. And not only did they turn up, what they did was that they went to the crime scene. Now, what you've got to understand about a crime scene, it's important it's kept as sterile as possible. So the golden rule of a crime scene is sterility, right? That's why they cordon it off, and anyone in and out. And so the crime scene manager they'll have an officer logging in people into the crime scene. They tend to have to wear overshoes.
Yeah, because any little tiny fibre of your clothing can contaminate forensically contaminate the area.
So what you got to look at a crime scene is a field of pure white snow. So in the middle is your victim, maybe a child, right? And you've got to save that child. So someone's put that child there. So there'll be a set of footprints going to the child and away from the child, right? And that's going to be your suspect, right? So you know that whoever owns them footprints, that's your suspect, right? So you've got to go and save that child. But how are you going to get there? You've got to contaminate that crime scene. You've got to go in there, but you will account for it. So you'll say, those footprints are our suspect, those footprints are mine. So you can tell the judge, jury, and everyone else, this is what it is. So you can then be eliminated from the crime scene. And you hear that saying a lot, we can eliminate them from the crime scene. But bear in mind, if you get a small garden in inner London, it's not like in the counties where you get big gardens. Little garden on a Georgian house, turn of the century house with a small front garden, and you've got 46 people treading in and out of that, plus your suspect, plus your detectives, plus the first on scene, the neighbour. How are you going to manage that crime scene?
Well, so they've muddied the waters, basically, haven't they? They've poisoned the well.
That crime scene is totally and utterly devastated.
Yeah.
Was that done on purpose? Well, why send 23 ambulances there for a start? So, again, you've got to ask questions. Well, why? And I met that Barry George.
Barry George, yeah. He got acquitted, by the way, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it's obviously he was not convicted.
And I'm going to say something that might not be nice to the guy, but I met him in the Principal Registry Court in Holborn, and he's not the full shilling. He clearly has got educational needs. He looks retarded. When I met him, I thought, wow, and how is this the mastermind of crime? He got acquitted. So this isn't the first time someone with special educational needs has been stitched up with something.
They also did like a honey trap. They got a hired gun. They got a good-looking girl to go and pretend to date him and meet him and try and get information out of him.
Well, they did that with Colin Stagg as well.
Right.
Colin Stagg, again, was another one. And the detective that was used for the honey trap on that, they pensioned her off and got her out of the way quick, which is what they do.
And he got paid off, but he basically got a settlement, like some kind of, I think he got £700,000. But that case, the Jill Dando case, is unresolved at the moment. That's the thing.
And it always will be, because... but if we go back to Rachel Nickel, the girl that was murdered on Wimbledon Common...
when was that? What year was that?
I think it was early to mid-90s, right? So, very attractive woman, and she was with her little son out walking, and this guy turns up and just stabs her to death, and her son was found over her body. Very blonde, slim, and Rachel Nickel, it's an interesting case. And they arrested a guy called Colin Stagg, and they did very much the same, a honey trap, and they used a police officer to coerce adjunct provocateur a confession out of him. And what they did was she manufactured this sort of sexual scenario that would you like it if a woman was strangled or something like that. And of course he was a bit of an inadequate individual, and he sort of went along with it because he was in awe of this woman. I think this was whilst she was on remand, she was doing it. And they used that evidence saying, well, look, he's clearly admitting to strangling women and stabbing them and all that. But the guy was just thinking with his cock, and to put it bluntly. And he didn't do it. Colin Stagg didn't do it. And he suffered badly in prison. I think he got assaulted in prison, and his life collapsed, and he was just it devastated him, and I think his missus had to move home, and he successfully sued in the end. But what was interesting was a very early documentary, and this goes to show the arrogance of these senior coppers, and we see it time and time again, and it's something we probably will touch on as we go through this interview, because it seems a consistent thread. The senior investigating officer was on the TV, and he was going, with the most boldest arrogance you've ever heard, he went, "We will not be looking for any other suspect." Basically saying, it is Colin, that is it, tough shit. The jury,
why though? Why do they act like that?
Because they get entrenched in this thought process. It is him, and it's arrogance. And it's arrogant. And I want to go on to a very recent case of a bloke called Wayne Couzens in a minute. Again,
Sarah Everard.
Everard, yeah. And of course, Colin Stagg never did it. But what was interesting with the Colin Stagg was there was a guy called Robert Napper, who did kill her. And he'd murdered a girl called Jacqueline Blissett in Plumstead. And he was clearly a psychopath. And funny enough, I was working at Plumstead at the time when Jacqueline Blissett was murdered. So I sort of had a bit of a connection to all this. And Robert Napper had murdered this woman, Jacqueline Blissett, and murdered her daughter. And he mutilated them in the most appalling ways. I had a mate that was on the case, and he said what they did, it was akin to really Jack the Ripper esque type murder scene. It was appalling. And he clearly went right in the head. But he had also, I think, prior to murdering the Blissett girl, he'd gone into Plumstead police station and he'd told them, "I've murdered someone." And what he was telling them was he'd murdered Rachel Nickel on Wimbledon Common. He told the police. And he told him to F off.
What?
They told him to F off, yeah. "Oh, you're nuts, go away," right? And then you've got this senior investigating officer, who everyone thought was some sort of national hero. Again, this isn't me sour grapes against senior officers. I have got sour grapes against some of them, but not all of them. With this blinkered, entrenched opinion, which is massively ego-driven and fundamentally flawed on every level, saying it's Colin Stagg, it is no one else. We will not be putting any resource in it. And it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was, and not only had Napper done the work for him, he'd actually gone in and said, "I murdered," and the links to the murders, the likeness, everything, it was so similar. It was.
I guess he didn't lose his job either. That guy who turned him away.
Oh no, he'll be, I don't know, funny ain't shaped off. I don't know, who knows.
Yeah.
But Wayne Couzens, and see, this is where the police have got it wrong, and this is something I really want to stress. It's going to get worse with policing because they've lost a lot of experienced officers, and there's a lot of good officers out there. There's some brilliant investigators. There's some superb interviewers, of which I like to think I was one of them.
Yeah.
But they need to start diversifying a bit, because there's a guy who I've mentioned before called Peter Hyatt, and he's a statement analyst, forensic statement analyst. So word forensic, all it means is evidence for court. That's all forensic means, evidence for court. So he does forensic statement analyst. So he breaks down the written word into the spoken word into the written word, and then he analyses it for dishonesty, and he identifies dishonesty through transcripts, and he's 99.6% accurate, and he'll put his thing on it, and he does a brilliant summation of the McCanns, and his opinion is, the mother and father are involved in the kid's murder, and there's no point looking anywhere else. They killed her. End of. And here's my reason. So if anyone ever wants to watch this, it's called Embedded Confessions, and it's on YouTube. Just put in Embedded Confessions, Peter Hyatt or Maddy McCann, and I'll guarantee you it's 2 hours of the best forensic investigative journalism or whatever you'll ever come across.
Can you just give us a summary then of what you think exactly happened with Maddy McCann?
Well, Maddy McCann, funny enough, I did know someone that was on it, and I can remember she told me, she said, when because she was out in Portugal on it, she said, "John, the mum killed her. The mum killed her, that gave her tablets." So that came from someone who worked in there, and she said, and the Portuguese police knew it.
Why would she give her drugs just to knock her out?
Yeah. She's an anaesthetist, you see. Her and her husband are anaesthetists.
Right.
I was told, again, opinion, I was told it, so I'm just relaying it third party, that they were swingers. And this Tapas 6 lot were all into wife swapping and things like that.
Do you reckon they were passing Maddy around, though?
It may be. And the other thing we've got to look at is no body, no crime. And if there's no body found, see, a unexplained child death is going to be subject. There's two sorts of post-mortems. There's a standard PM, where they'll just cut the body open and they'll weigh the organs and they'll see cause of death. And there's a special post-mortem. So one will last 15 minutes, the other one lasts 2 hours. So a special post-mortem, the pathologist really goes into the minutiae of dissecting that body. So that child will be subject to a special post-mortem. So during that post-mortem, they will be looking at the sexual organs and if there's any damage to them. Now, if the child is being abused, that part of the body will show signs of abuse. And if that is a case, there was other children involved. There were 2 other children, and so then you're going to have placement issues. Social services get involved. Things that.
So how were they able to remove evidence of the body then?
Well, just get rid of the body.
Yeah.
Just get rid of the body. I mean.
And how do they get so much support from?
But again, why would you?
Everyone else?
Where did these people come from? I mean, David Blunkett got involved. The Pope got involved. There's the allegations of these Podesta brothers from America involved.
I've heard about they were involved as well. Yeah.
Yeah, all this weird, and then again they were putting it on normal people, saying it was this German guy, then it was this guy. How much foreign travel was the investigative team got from that? They've been to Morocco, they've been to Australia, and they were clearly told by Concalves, the lead investigator, it's the mum. And so adamant was he wrote a book. They tried to sue him, couldn't, and he went and wrote another book. And they tried to sue him and couldn't, and he got exonerated from the allegations that he was misleading.
Even if the mum did, let's say, accidentally kill Maddy McCann, why did she hide it though?
Well, exactly why, because if it was an accident, then come forward and say it.
Yeah.
A lot of parents give their kids cowpole and things like that. But like I said, it'll be subject to a special post-mortem.
Do you not think it's potential that they could have been involved in a paedophile ring and they're handing... you said a lot of the family passed their children around in these cults. And that's why they thought, we have to cover this up because otherwise it's going to lead to one thing onto another thing and it might unravel the whole network.
The whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
And then what do people do? They call on favours. I mean, the first thing they ever do, and you see this all the time with whistleblowers, they have to denigrate you. They have to rubbish you. And we see it in the press all the time. I want to mention something very, very, very topical at the moment. And it's this lady in the north, in Lancashire, that went missing and turned up in the river dead. Is it Nicola Bulley?
Yes. What do you think about her?
Right, well, I worked on a unit. Again, I worked very closely with the world's #1 expert on identification of bodies in an aquatic environment. So I worked on the River Thames and the River Police for a few years, and I worked with a guy, and he was the dead body identification officer for all the bodies that turned up in the Thames. And bear in mind, the River Thames, especially in London, dishes up more dead bodies than any other policing area put together. One a week. And, suspicious death, one a week. You wouldn't get any other police unit in the UK. You'd probably struggle in a busy part of the world to get one a week. Maybe in Mexico or somewhere like that. But you get one a week, suspicious death. And these are bodies that have been in the Thames. Thames is a tidal waterway. And when the bodies are given up, they do come to the surface. They are badly distorted and mutilated, and it's very, very difficult to find causation of death. Very, almost impossible. Water destroys the DNA, so if there is DNA in the body and things like that, it's ruined. Now, what happens is the body floats twice. So initially it will float, and then it will sink. It will quickly sink. So it'll be floating for a little while, and then it will go under. Depending on the depth of the river, the Thames is quite a deep river in mid channel. So you could get central London. There are parts where you'll get 10 metres. The body will be knocked around by eddy currents and also just by general knocking about. But because it's tidal, it will ebb and it will flow, right? So it will flow out to sea, which all rivers flow, but not all rivers ebb. Ebb means when the tide comes in, it goes back. So on the whole, there'll be more pressure on a flow because it's naturally going that way. So a tide will come in and tide will go out. So when it goes out, it will go out with a flow behind it. But when it comes in, it is fighting the flow, if it means. So within about 10 metres of where a body goes in, that's where it will stay on the whole. And it will do this. And aquatic life will eat it. So you'll get crabs, shrimp, eels, and fish which generally eat it. So it will get distorted. The body will bloat. White people go black and black people go white. So black people, their skin pigment peels off, leaving a white layer. And white people, their skin goes black. And then when the gases get to a critical point, and that's usually determined by weather. If it's cold, the gases build up slowly. When it warms up, they accelerate and up the body comes. And they're putrid. And there's not much you can make out of them, you know. Someone, even if they're skinny, there'll be this balloon of a hair will be missing, their eyes will be bulging. It's an appalling sight. The stench is the most unbelievable smell you've ever had in your life. I mean, I've pulled a lot of bodies out. Sometimes I pulled one out and the arm come off it. So I stood there holding a dead arm once, with something like out a zombie film. And so this girl Nicola was found. Was it 25 days after she went in? The River Wire is tidal when you go, I think, towards Fleetwood, Blackpool, that area. I think that's where it goes into the sea. North Lancashire. Where she went in, I don't know it, but the pictures, it doesn't look like a particularly big river. It looks fast flowing. The time of year, there's a lot of water. And we had a lot of water and rain. So, and it was cold, very cold partly, you know, so that body may well have been kept down. But I don't think it's that deep. So I think you'd struggle to have that body underwater for a long time there. It was found a mile away. Again, I've not got much comment on that because I don't know the river and it's a lot of meanders in it. Would it have made a mile? I'm not sure. It's a long way, a mile, by the look of it, where she's gone in. She might have... from what we've been told, again, you only go on what you've been told. She was taking, she was depressed and a heavy alcohol user. Maybe she's tried to kill herself, taking tablets or something, and gone into the water and off she's gone for a swim, you know, and it's overcome her, and which may have been her attention. I don't know. She might have swum.
What do you think though? What's your gut instinct on her?
Well, the weird stuff about that is, why did the cadaver dogs not pick it up? Because they're incredibly sensitive animals. I mean, I think they're brilliant. The canine support units the police have got, and their noses are good. I mean, I knew a dog could pick up the scent of cannabis nearly 100 metres away. You know, not smoked cannabis, stored cannabis. It was that good. So a rotting corpse, it's going to stink. It is going to stink. A waterborne one as well. That's going to be minging. She was found in reeds, so it wasn't really in the water. How did she get in them reeds for a start? I don't know. I mean, did the river flood that high that allowed for that? Again, we've not been given that sort of information, so we don't know, right? But a mile away from where she's allegedly gone in, yes, she would have gone downriver because it was non-tidal, so it would have taken her that way. What happened? I don't know. I really don't know. It's difficult. It seems odd that she was in the reeds.
What's the official story? Like, what's the official account? What do you think? What are they telling us? I
think it looks like they're erring on suicide.
Yeah.
But then there's things that the husband was into acting and her best friend was in the same acting agency or something. So there's all that acting sort of connection. But the one thing that really sticks in my throat about this was that the police brought in a contractor, right, called Peter Fording. I've had not a lot, bits of communication with Peter because I was setting up a group of professionals to look for missing people, and Peter was put my way, and there has been a little bit of audit trail between me and Peter in the past. Nothing big, but at some point I was hoping to link in with him. Not now. I'm not really interested because I moved away from all that stuff now. But back then, about 2 years ago, there was, I knew a lot of people he knew, and I knew a guy that worked on his team. And these are a lot of them ex-professionals. He's got a lot of ex-military, a lot of ex-police that work for him, specialists. And he set himself up with this incredible network and very well facilitated. So he had helicopter, he had dive teams, he had rib boats, he had everything. He was kitted out, ready to go. There's another guy I know. I'm not going to name him because I've not got his permission, but he's set himself up as the number one expert for sniffer dogs, and has done a lot of good work for the Moors murders and all sorts of things. And especially in Northern Ireland, he's found an incredible amount of bodies. I think there's something like 50 bodies went missing, and he found 49 of them. Police never, he did. And he's an expert, and he's done stuff with me in the past. This guy's a really lovely guy, and he did stuff with Peter. So between the two of them, they're pretty much cornering the market on this. And of course, they can't be silenced, right? Whereas the police, as I know, if you're going somewhere you shouldn't go, the old boy network will come in and say, you're not doing it. Senior officers will shut you up. And if they don't shut you up, they'll fuck you up, right? But they can't do that to Peter Fording. And they can't do it to these other people. So they bring Peter Fording in, and he does make a bold comment, she's not in the water. Now, that's based on what he's been told and what he knows. So is he right or is he wrong in saying that? Well, he was justified in saying it because, that's his experience and that's information he's given. And let's not forget, it's a police's job. It's Lancashire Police's job, not his job. It's their screw up, not his. But when it all went wrong and they did find the body in the river, albeit in the reeded area, right? So he's right in saying it's not in the river because literally it's not, but technically it probably is. He gets a blame and he gets attacked so massively, this guy. He is being attacked by the press, by these TV talk shows, and they're mullering him. He's getting boom, 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 boom. And I said to my mate, they're doing a hatchet job on him. This seems like he's been set up. And it had a horrible vibe to it, what they were doing to this.
He's getting too good at his job, basically.
Yeah. And he's not accountable to the system. He's independent. And I said, they're going to screw him. They're going to F him up. And the next week, it came out in the press. Peter Fording has been removed from the specialist search register. And I thought, there you go. They
can't have it. They can't have someone getting too close to the truth. No, they can't.
And it's a bit like Diana, can't have it. They just can't have it. And if you push it, you're finished. You're gone. And look what they've done to this guy. They've destroyed him. He'll bounce back, but
he's like they did with Mike Veal as well. Mike Veal, you remember telling me about Mike Veal? He got completely destroyed, didn't he?
Ruined.
Because for outing Ted Heath, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely ruined. And then you've got good people like the MP Andrew Bridgen who stood up for Mike Veal. He got warned away. Don't go near. So you get this all the time. So if we were going back to what we were saying, look, there was this Wayne Couzens, right? And this is what the point I was making about how police can move forward, right? People like Peter Hyatt, who have got this phenomenal success rate, okay? You've got a 99.6% track record, which is second to none. And he should be used, right? And now he's made his opinion on the Maddy McCann case, and he's turned around and said, it's the mum and the father. The mum's overdosed her, and she actually admits to it, and he's made allegations.
She admits to it?
No, that he said she admits to it in her spoken word.
Oh, through his deciphering of dishonesty,
And he picks up on the fact that Jerry McCann shows signs of paedophilia, Again, I'd go along with that, based on what he says. I'd say, that seems about right.
Well, how's he finding that? What's he finding to know that? Like, what's he?
Because he knows how the spoken word works, what people say consciously and subconsciously, and he's an expert on picking out dishonesty and also the pronouns and everything else people use when they're in trouble, really, and when people are they make reference to something, they make reference to their guilt, and certain things can be a big indicator of sex offending.
Oh, right.
Right. So, for example, victim, and I know this because I did work with profilers when I was on the child abuse unit, and when I was on the vice unit, I used to...
You used a lot of NLP, didn't you say?
Yeah, and a lot of that, but also, statement analysis is used a lot. And when you interview victims, they will say things, and they will have certain traits. So people that have got an obsession with cleanliness and washing their hands,
right,
and it's to wash away dirt.
Yeah, because they feel dirty on the inside. But is there anything they say in the spoken word, like the way they arrange their language arrangement that gives it away?
So suspects will say things like, so one guy we interviewed, and then we got it analysed. He said, "I never fingered her," and he said, "John, what's he telling you? He's actually telling you he fingered her, and he had fingered this little girl, but he was saying, I never fingered, and they'll distance themselves as well. So instead of saying the person's name, they'll say that girl." So they're distancing themselves, and they'll also denigrate the victim as well. So they'll rubbish the victim, because what it does, it objectifies it, and it takes away any humanness on that person. So they feel justified in doing it. So in their mind, they know what they've done, and they've totally destroyed a human being. But then if they objectify that person, then it's not human.
It's dehumanising.
Dehumanising it. It's not human. So, and then their language becomes distancing. So, for example, if there's something you like, you will make it near to you. So if you went away with your mates and had a brilliant holiday, you'll say, "Do you remember that holiday we had? Oh man, when we went away the other year, it was." But it turns out it was 10 years ago. But you want it near to you because it's a good memory. But if it was a horrible time, you'll say, "Oh, it's so long ago, years ago."
Well, there's another example actually. I noticed this the other week. I'm a Spurs supporter. We always lose. My team always loses. When we win, I said, "We won."
Yeah.
When we lose, Spurs really let us
lost.
down.
They
Spurs,
lost.
it's objectifying the thing. So it detaches you from it, separates you from it. Whereas if the team wins, you take it on as yours in you.
Yeah.
We won today.
Yeah.
When they lose, Spurs lost. Yeah. It's like that's it, isn't it?
Well, companies do it all the time when you've done really good. Well done, we've done that, we showed them. And then when you do it wrong, it's your liability. You've really screwed up here. What have you done?
Yeah, they do that,
and people do it all the time.
So it's little subtle language clues like that, right?
And that distancing language that they'll do, and you've got to really be on it.
Yeah.
But once you know it, you're there. You can then. But he's made it a science. But right, so one of the things, and it was, I didn't get this from him. I got this from this guy I work with. And he used to say about sex offenders, there's certain traits of a sex offender. They'll do certain things. And there's always a history. They don't wake up one day and they start being a sex offender. There'll be a long history of it. The same as psychopaths. There's a long history. And one of the things that makes a person dangerous with a propensity to murder in a sexualised environment are flashers, right? So people that expose themselves, the dirty raincoat blokes that go around. Years ago, people would laugh. Oh, the flashers.
Do you still get those anymore? You don't really.
No,
I remember,
not
in the
really.
80s, there was lots of it.
But they're dangerous. These are very, very dangerous individuals because they're opportunistic. So what they'll do is they'll gauge the reaction of their victim, and they'll gauge the environment. And if there's no one about and the victim's frightened, they'll rape them and they'll kill them. And they'll go from flashing, which is a minor level, sexual offending, to off the scale, the worst abhorrent one there is, rape and murder. And they'll do that in a heartbeat. So they're so dangerous. And I was always told, knickers, people that would nick the underwear from the lines, very dangerous as well. Very, very dangerous people. And flashers, but get their cock out. Very, very dangerous. Very predatory, very high risk. But
because that's the first rung of the ladder of all the different types of offences they'll make, but that's the first one, right?
Yeah, and also how bodies are laid out.
Yeah.
When they're murdered, there's a lot can be read in a crime scene. Police don't teach any of it, none of it. You don't get it anywhere. Whereas when you get profilers, there's a brilliant one, a lady called Corinne Hutzterbach, who I do a lot of work with.
I spoke to her the other day,
and I'll arrange that for you. She's brilliant. And she's caught 2 serial killers. And she caught one. This guy, he was a detective in the gendarmerie in Paris, and he killed 7 children. Now, when he was on, I think his second murder, she was called in and she looked at the crime scene. And she was on the TV. It was either last year or 2 years ago when this guy got caught, detective in Paris, and they caught him. I think he'd hung himself in a hotel in Lyon or somewhere like that. And she went round and she said, John, the moment I saw this scene, I knew it was a police officer, right? Because of how it was laid out, how he did it. You know, he would have had to gain entry to this place. He could have only done it as an authoritarian individual, and it would have to be as a policeman.
Right.
And she said, but he's got away with it, and he got out. So he wouldn't have been in uniform. He would have been a detective. And she also said how the body was laid out as well. And she said, this is a policeman. So she told them, she told the authorities, you're dealing with a policeman.
And they listened or not?
He said, no, they didn't listen. And the murders went on, and of course she gets called in again. She said, look, and she narrowed it down. She said, he will be operating in this segment of Paris. And if the murders are elsewhere, he's been moved. Right? So if you start getting murders in another way, you'll probably find he's been moved. So, but he would have started off here. She said, I recommend you DNA every detective, right, in the gendarmerie in Paris. And she said, you'll find that when it gets near, the heat gets near, he'll make an excuse and not turn up, right? So they did it. So they sent out a thing saying, I think there's something like 20,000 detectives. So they sent out this thing saying, right, all detectives need to submit themselves to DNA swabbing. And they turned up except one. He went on holiday, and then they gave him another opinion, and he went on holiday again, but he hadn't returned from leave. And she said, that's your man. That's your man. And they tracked him down to a hotel room, and he was found hanging with a note admitting to every murder. Had they listened to her, 5 kids would be alive today. She also identified Marc Dutroux 2 years before he was caught, the Beast of Belgium. So people like her, you know, they're absolute in their knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? Again, Peter Heyer, negligible amount of failures that is not even worth bothering about. The guy is bang on. So why don't they train people like that? And
they don't want the truth, it seems. It seems as though the police are covering up for stuff, or they're involved with it themselves at the highest level.
Yeah, and the arrogance of it. We do it this way. This is Scotland Yard. We show the world how to do it. Mate, them days.
That sounds like Life on Mars, the 1970s style, you know.
And maybe years ago that they were, but they're gone. Yeah. They're gone now. You'll probably find the police in Rwanda are better than the Metropolitan
Oh, it wouldn't
police
surprise me.
So when this happened with this Sarah Everard and this Wayne Cousins, and it came up before he'd been for murder.
Yeah, so just for the audience, Sarah Everard was walking alone one night. She was
in Clapham Common.
Clapham Common. She was stopped on the street. 'Cause I watched the video. There was like CCTV footage of it. He stopped her and pretended it was like a COVID stop or something like that. Got her into the car, took her somewhere, raped her, and then buried her body in a woodland area. Right? Yeah.
Somewhere in Kent near his house, and
he was a police officer.
But he was from the diplomatic protection thing. He was a part-time soldier, the Territorial Army. But it came up that he'd come to notice twice, once in recent and once in the history, but going back a little way, for indecent exposure. One was in a McDonald's, one was somewhere else.
He was.
And as soon as I heard that, I said, he's murdered. He's murdered.
Yeah?
He has murdered. I'm telling you now, he's a murderer. And I said that to someone, and he was. And he went, how did you know? I said, because he's a flasher. And now, how did I know that? Right? But I was bang on. I was 100%. Again, this isn't... But you brought me in here to interview me, ask me my opinion. And he murdered that woman. And I knew it before he got caught for the murder or anything. I said, he is a murderer. It's him. Yeah. He's done it. And so there was this other guy, David... I can't remember his name now. He was arrested... a few months ago, just found guilty of 47 rapes, a police officer. Again, from the same unit as Wayne Couzens, the same office, the same depot they worked out of. Again, this diplomatic protection nonsense, armed police and all that. Again, very macho people using social media, or pictures of them in the gym and all that. The same pattern. The similarities between these two individuals are just off the scale. So what we've got to look at now is, why wasn't this picked up on? This David guy who's just been convicted, a police officer for 47 rapes, his nickname was the Beast. Right? No, the Bastard.
Okay, yeah, the Beast was Mark Dutroux, wasn't it?
Mark Dutroux, yeah, Bastard, the Bastard. And
as nicknames go, it's not. It's not encouraging, is it? Yeah.
So something. I think there was Blackadder, wasn't there? The Bastard, Sean, the Irish Bastard, and then there was Wayne Couzens. Nickname was the Rapist. His nickname was the Rapist. Now, here's one for you now. Again, I'm not going to pass my source on, but this is from an insider who told me that the same sort of era of intake that took in Wayne Couzens and this other guy, that's when there was this massive recruitment drive, because they dipped numbers of the police so low that it was unsustainable. But they started lowering the criteria, right, the standard for entry, and they're allowing people in with minor convictions and all sorts of things.
Into the police.
Yeah. And they had to take part in vetting questionnaires. But I was told from an insider, hot off the press here, that 90% of the vetting didn't get checked. Only 10% got checked. Now, if that's the case, if that is the case, this deserves a public inquiry. Why have vetting if you're not going to bother doing it? Would it save lives? Well, it definitely. If they knew about Wayne Couzens, if something in his parcel cropped up, and with the vetting they checked the social media and all that, they would have seen these people. If they'd have used basic level premises of profiling and psychometric testing, they would have weeded out these people. End of. It would have happened.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're not vetting these?
I don't know. Who knows how the Home Secretary's mind works? I know there was a need to get more ethnic officers in.
I was going to say, is it because of the forced inclusion aspect?
Yeah. Now, I'd say that's pretty much an insult to ethnic candidates, that they've got to reduce the criteria in respect to criminality just to get you guys in. It should be a
meritocracy where the best get in.
Yeah, of course it should. And if you've lived a life without crime, and you're not hanging around with criminals, and you've not got a propensity to groom women online, then you get the job.
That's shocking.
There's 68 million people in this country, and there's a lot of people want that job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what they should do is say, well, if you're not a UK national, but you've applied for nationalisation, then you should get in. But apart from that, why lower the standard? Why? There's plenty of people, decent people, that would do that job. They've seen it in the past, in the 1970s when they did this, and it led to all sorts of police corruption. It only leads one way, and that's corruption. And these people do come to notice, and nothing is done about it. So I think there's a massive failing on the police in respect to all these cases, and there should be a public inquiry.
And not only that, but I want to just segue into have you seen like the drag queen story hour stuff?
These parents, I mean,
come on, John.
Give me it to them. Right, so we've got a guy who's scantily dressed. He's showing his buttocks. Yeah. He's doing sexually provocative dances. He's a drag queen, and a parent sat there. Who benefits from this? Yeah. What is the point of any of this? These are children. Why are we teaching our children this disgusting sex? It's perverse.
You got babies watching this. I mean, and you know what they say? It's a sensory event. That's what they say. They said it's no different to a pantomime.
We'll take them to a soft play then.
Yeah.
Take them to the zoo.
This is a line that's been well and truly crossed. You know, get this from The Guardian. that the way they support him, they say the protesters, because obviously a lot of protesters turn up outside the places where he's doing this. The Guardian saying the protesters who turn up seem to skew towards the conspiracist right. I mean, it's just ludicrous, isn't it? People that just don't want to see, that want to safeguarding children and not see children having to see sweaty bollocks in their face, and yet these are the left liberals that have a problem with the male gaze. Catcalling, from a building site. All right, darling, how you doing?
Whoever has written that isn't right in the head. It's
The Guardian. What do you expect? Tim Jonzer from The Guardian.
Tim Jonzer, you're not right in the head. There's something wrong. See,
this guy here, so he went up to a copper here, and he basically had a load of evidence. This is after an Ada.
I know this guy.
Ada HD event,
and I know that the fellow that protects him as well in the background.
And he's just. What do you make of that? Is he protecting him? The police officer seems to be protecting him.
No, the police are protecting. Yeah, of course he is.
The drag artist.
Yeah, maybe. It doesn't seem right. He has got evidence. He's got clear evidence.
He says we want to have a citizen's arrest right now.
Yeah.
Because we think that this is a danger to children.
I don't think the police would have gone and allowed him to arrest them, but from this guy, from his social media, there seems like there clearly is offences on there that need looking at.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not for the uniform officers to deal with that, but that should have definitely gone to a CID team to look at and formulate it. And I think in respect to safeguarding, they should have called an end to it.
But so I'll just play a little bit.
See, he's got free Wilfred Wong t-shirt.
Oh, is he?
Money down their pants.
Yeah.
So we go on. Drag queens, many drag queens in this country, I've got it all in here, have been arrested for grooming and sexually.
So this guy's, he's got a bit of a history of finding these guys and getting convictions.
There's 2 drag queens that was cancelled from a school only about 3 weeks ago because the headmaster looked on their social media and they was giving each other blowjobs and each other drugs, so he pulled them from the school.
So it's just ridiculous.
This
is the post I was telling you about.
So that's one of them. Love has no age.
That's right, yeah.
Which is quite worrying, one of his posts. Another post is where you can clearly see his penis while in front of children. I've got a high-res definition of this. You can clearly outmake his testicles and his penis. He's got no pants on. You can see that. Here, he alludes to an 11-year-old that if he met in a gay club, he would have sex with. You got your body one. Here, he's took a picture of a young guy's arse he's just penetrated, and he's wrote on his arse, Ada was here. Also here, he alludes that when in the gay club, he likes to have his bum destroyed. Which, that man, just on them 4 pages, I've got a whole folder full, should not be teaching children.
He's right. Morally,
it's ridiculous,
morally
what's
he's
going
right.
on, John?
And it's perverse. And this was in Brighton, I think, wasn't it?
This one was in Brighton, yeah.
And it's disgraceful. Absolutely appalling. And I did reach out to this fella. I've got my mate to send a message to him saying,
I want to speak to this guy. I think he's got some good information.
I'll just see if I can work it out. Because, and look, it takes for a member of the public to put together a quite a comprehensive journal of offending to give to the police.
Can this guy get this copper that he's speaking to and he's giving the evidence to? Can he be held personally accountable now if he's not following this up?
Well, I mean, if they find that he's been vicariously liable, and that there's like a malfeasance, so he hasn't done his job, there may be. And if someone is, I mean, the problem is these kids might not be immediately assaulted by this drag queen, but the long-term effect isn't right. It's
of
not.
Course.
Where's the welfare there? There's nothing to be benefited from children watching this. It's perverse. It's wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, have you seen this? Look at this one. This.
And shame on any parent that allows that. I mean, this is clear. This is satanic. This is like he's bringing out an abortion or something.
Yeah, he stabs himself in the chest whilst dressed up as a woman.
And there are children watching this.
No, I think this is just by the bar. But I mean, this is where it's going. It's a slippery slope to hell, basically.
I mean, how is any of that entertaining? For me, that's just demonic.
It is demonic.
He's putting out entrails and flicking them, and adults are watching it, find it funny.
Yeah, it's just beyond sick. It's beyond sick. And then we're also seeing it in the Sam Smith videos. It's called Unholy, right? So I'll just play a little bit of this, but you can.
Unholy. And at the end of the day, we live in a Christian society.
Yeah.
And this man clearly is demonic.
Yeah, or he's definitely been. Do you think he started off demonic? Yeah, he's even doing like the 666.
I mean, and Madonna was of the same ilk.
And they talk about Balenciaga in this music video as well. Talking about Madonna, this is something that I just found this week. But this is the Grammys music video, by the way.
I mean,
same sort of thing, right? It's just like it's in your face. Some of this stuff, isn't it?
Well, Sam Smith's playing it out, but someone's choreographed it. Someone has built them costumes. Someone has designed them costumes, and someone's put it all together. Yeah, and it's nefarious. The reasoning before.
I'd love to be a fisher.
So this one, he's talking about being a fish of them.
A fish of them, yeah. He's just off his head.
I'd be any type of fish of them. I think I would like to. One day, I'd just like to end my days fishing.
Yeah.
So you've heard him saying talking about fishing, right? And so that's his latest thing. And he says, "I don't do it
alone. Someone's always taught me."
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Right, now we come to Madonna, who obviously there's a link between Madonna and Sam Smith. I think she even hosted the Grammys recently.
Come on, go.
Look at the state of her.
Look at that, it's like Medusa. So you know what she's talking about here. And look, this is the biggest clue.
Let's go eat some fried fish.
Wait for it.
Because there's no more pasta. Oh no.
Yeah,
and pasta, you know what that is. So basically, pasta is one of the code words that was leaked in the WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
You know, pasta was little boy.
Little boy, right?
That in the Podesta file, the WikiLeaks file.
What would the fish be?
Well, I don't know, but I think that may be just a new one they've come up with.
Right, okay, you're right.
Basically, but that for me, there's. You don't just make a song about pasta and fried fish, and you don't just say, oh, I'm a fisherman, but I don't do it alone, you know, and I like to catch fish. I'm sorry, after all the demonic, satanic stuff he's put out, it's too much.
Well, I've been going on about this for a long time now, and I've been massively attacked for it, but we're seeing it, and I'll just say, look, if you want to ignore this, and you just see this as just entertainment, then you're screwed. And how the demonic works is it's all down to freedom of choice. Well, how the whole spiritual thing is freedom of choice. You can choose to ignore this. You can choose to say that this is just entertainment. Or you can see that this is the principalities of darkness. And when you accept this, you're contractually obliging yourself to this demonic realm. You're tuning yourself
by just
into it.
Enjoying it and watching it, you mean?
Yeah, the whole
so that's
thing.
a contract,
Yeah,
you're saying,
that is it. You're contractually obliging yourself
so
to
how
it.
do you, I mean, because there may be a lot of things that you're unwittingly drawing yourself into a contract with that you don't want to. How can you break that then? Because, you know, even for instance, you might be in a car listening to something and humming along to it, or you're using a word that potentially is a sigil for like the demonic world.
Yeah.
How do you...
Well, I mean...
Is the idea prayer? Is that because I don't want to go too much in... Because I know there's a lot of people watching that they're not necessarily of the religious belief. And I don't want to kind of alienate all those people because there's good people that just want to see paedophiles get caught, you know?
Of course.
But can you... Is there a way to kind of explain that in a way that won't distance...
Yeah, right. So, look, I believe in Jesus Christ, and that's just how life's taken me. Two things have occurred to me.
Yeah.
I've seen pure evil. I'm not going to go into it, but I have done in the past. I've seen evil in my face, which nothing can account for it because it's been that bad. And I saw a miracle.
What was the miracle? Could you say?
It involved my son that was in a coma and that was dead for 10 minutes, and he was dead. His brain dead. His heart stopped everything, and that was it.
And you got the flashing. You got when you were driving back. You got the shooting star
through in front
and then you got the call. Yeah.
And I was in the chapel for 3 days, just praying and praying and praying, and I made a commitment to God. And the third day he woke up, and not only did he wake up, he had no brain damage, and he went on to walk.
That's incredible,
so there was no way he was gone. They said to me that he's not going to survive. So I've seen that, and no one will take that away from me.
But how would you let's say you see this demonic stuff? How would you
look? We can choose to ignore it. We've got to get over the getting offended thing, right? Well, I don't believe it. It doesn't matter what we believe. And look, religion is the enemy of God anyway. God's not interested in religion. He's not. Yeah. It's a control mechanism, and it's a divisive tool. It's not. And the more we got that, the more the devil's laughing. This is old. If people think it's a nonsense, okay.
Yeah.
But it's the oldest thing there is. That eternal battle between good and evil.
Well, we see so much of the dark stuff. There has to be some kind of counterbalance with the light.
Well, of course. I mean, the devil's job is to take souls.
Yeah.
And he's a liar and he's a deceiver. So if he tricks you either way, contractually or not, whether you're ignorant to it or not, that's not his problem. That's your problem. So take, for example, you take out a loan. Right? So they say, look, we'll lend you the money, and then all you've got to do is pay this back. And you sit there and think, I ain't got to pay much back. And actually, when you work out, you think, actually, the more I got, the less I got paid back. Actually, it's not going to cover the loan, but that's their problem. But then you've got to think of terms and conditions. Now, they don't sit down and explain terms and conditions. They're written in print so small, and then
so
when
you
it's
don't
on
bother
the advert,
looking.
they go, terms and conditions.
Yeah, at the end, yeah, and they catch you.
It's the same as a caution, right?
Right, yeah.
You're under arrest. You don't have to say anything. You may a lot of people don't understand that, but it doesn't matter. You've been told it's on you. The onus is on you. Same as in terms and conditions. You sign that, it's on you. It don't matter. Well, I didn't understand. Who cares? Turn it to the court. Turn it to the bailiffs, right? Yeah. You don't pay. We're coming for you. Same as this. It's clearly telling you what it is.
These music
there
videos?
There is no
and
ambiguity there.
Yeah.
You know.
So you couldn't say that's like pushing the artistic boundaries.
No, it's clearly demonic to lure you in. Right. Look at someone who grooms a child. It's not a monster who grooms a child.
Yeah, it's the pleasant thing.
It's a nice one, right?
Yeah, it's the Wicked Witch bringing them into Hansel and Gretel's house, the gingerbread house, all nice and made of candy.
Course.
That's the trick, isn't it?
I interviewed a woman, and it was a famous case. It was the case of Baby P, and I interviewed her mother. And during the interview, she was all telling me what a good mother she is and what this, you know. And then, well, let's just say I outwitted her.
Right.
Bang! You saw a character change like you've never seen.
You told us that in one of the, and you it was the thing where you try and get them to stand up. Whatever happens, you get them to stand up, and she lost it, and that's the one that sees your child.
And that's the monster your child see. And this is how they'll turn. And it's the same as this. Like they won't be. Look, every one of us, John, we've got to understand. Every one of us is going to take our last breath, right? And whether you believe in a God or you don't, it's immaterial. If you think there's nothing after this, there's a good chance you know you're going to be disillusioned. You know, an atheistic approach, whatever it is, but every one of us is going to find out when we.
Yeah.
Now, do you really want to take that gamble that you're going to be wrong or you're going to be right? You know, isn't it best to be a good person, not to hurt anyone?
Well, I just come from truth. You know, do good in the world. Don't harm anyone.
Don't harm anyone.
You know, and that's for me the tenets.
You know, and all the time it's on us. Every day we do things wrong.
Yeah.
Give them sins to God, because what the devil wants, he wants to own them sins and he can control you then.
Yeah.
And this is what happens.
Well, these people are definitely they've been taken. You know, especially Hollywood, the music industry. They've gone. I'm just aware of the time, and I've got so many little things. Maybe we can just do like a quick fire on some. Is that all right, John?
Yeah.
Because there's so many here that I don't want to miss, and some of these have come from our audience as well. Just a quick opinion on Richard Watkinson. His body was found dead at home. He was caught with worked for the Met, didn't he? And he was caught with child images.
Oh yeah, this is
Richard Watkinson.
Right, okay,
Quick one on that.
Yeah, this is bizarre because this is what they said about the paedophile ring within the police.
Yeah.
And what is interesting about this, for someone on bail for a child porn offence, whether it's making images, distributing images, or even a sexual assault, it's not uncommon for them to commit suicide. So there is a high risk when someone is bailed under investigation for this. But
do you think he it was suicide? Do you think they killed him?
No, it was probably suicide.
Really, yeah.
Because it isn't uncommon. When we dealt with it, it happened. And I can always remember there's a girl I worked with, and it was her first case of child abuse. I think that was child porn images. And her suspect, he hung himself, okay? Right. And the superintendent brought us all in, and he went up to her and said, look, I'm really sorry, but, you know, this guy's dead. And she was crying. He said, look, it happens all the time. It's something you've got to get used to. It's nothing you've done wrong. This is what happens. These people are at high risk of suicide.
But apparently there was 800 plus other officers being investigated for sexual abuse.
Well, I mean, what I've been going on about, you know, for a long time. I've been saying this. There's this underbelly. You know, what you've got to look at is not so much those that commit the offence, who allows these offences to go on. You know, if we go back to what happened with me, why didn't they investigate it fully? Why did they then have to attack me? And it's not just me, other whistleblowers. You know, we've got to look at who are these officers. So, suspicious, no. Paedophiles in the police, of course. There's paedophiles everywhere. Like I said, you know, it's not like normal dishonest crime, violent crime. You won't tend to get them. You do, but on the whole you won't. Paedophilia. They need to start psychometrically testing every single officer and basic level of profiling at the interview stage.
Absolutely, and that's a good segue into the next question. Is that look at the BBC, for instance, and this is a question that from my friend Mark as well. But it really reminded me when he asked me this. Is that why is it that the BBC is so full of paedophiles and they get protected? Yeah. Are these people that are sought out to get the job to go in there?
Of course.
Or are they people that get the job there and then they're slowly corrupted to becoming paedophiles?
Well, you can be.
Which one is it?
You can be corrupted, but the one thing I want to say about paedophilia, it's not contagious. Right? You don't catch paedophilia.
Yeah, but so how is it that the BBC happens to be this absolute hotbed for paedophilia? Why the BBC? Like, what is it about the BBC?
Well, maybe it's the energy that created it is what stays with it. It's the entertainment industry.
But where do they get these people from then? Like, how do they hire them? Do they go, oh, he's a paedophile, let's hire him?
Look. A victim will smell a paedophile a mile away.
Yeah.
A paedophile will smell another paedophile a mile away. They will vibe with each other.
Oh, I see.
They will know each other through networking and everything.
So they'll get them in.
Of course. I mean, look at Gary Glitter and Jimmy Savile. And all, birds of a feather flock together. And
I'm sure there's hundreds at the BBC.
I mean, Gary Glitter. I mean, what an appalling looking individual. And you could see him. I mean, any parent who let their kid go on and dance with this man, he clearly is a wrong un. Same as Savile. He is what he is.
Yeah.
It was no secret. And I was told years ago by a guy, a gangster, who said he's also a very connected, dangerous gangster, Jimmy Savile. Very, very connected, very dangerous. And these people are there to procure children. Jimmy Savile procured kids.
Yeah.
They got them, so did Gary Glitter. They lured these kids in. They were getting kids from kids' homes, damaged kids, broken kids, and they were bringing them in and they were just shagging them. And of course, then it leads on to other things. And then that's not enough.
So is there any other? I guess we can't really name any other names, but the TV, when you watch TV, there must be so many that are part of it.
There's actors.
Can we name any? Obviously, we talked about the Rangers. I don't want to mention that again because you've mentioned that a couple of times now. But is there any names that we can mention, or will get us in trouble if we mention them?
Yeah, we'll just get in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, the reaction that you had to when I said about a comedy actor, there was a lot of people that were very accurate. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say who it is, and we've got to be careful we don't narrow it down so much. It can only be one person. But how did that?
Yeah. So just talking about that comedy actor, how was that formulated? So much overwhelming evidence that he was wretched.
Well, because I knew an officer that was on the investigation, right. And the victim said it was the actor that was the worst one, and this actor claimed to not be there at the time, and the victim said my mate was on it, and he said he's bad, man.
Yeah,
he's bad. And then I had another guy. He came to me and he was to do with the special forces, and he mentioned him as well. He said, look.
What did he say?
He said, look, he's wrong.
How? How did he know
he's wrong? Because he knew people that were involved in. This guy's involved. He's got a hobby, and he said, I know people that are involved in the same hobby, and there's rumours about him.
Okay.
And that's as much as I can say. But
unfortunately, though, it is still, he is, I guess, still innocent until proven guilty. That's the thing.
Of course.
And in a way, I'm kind of glad for that in society, but at the same time, these things need to get investigated.
John,
you can't just have it buried, right? That's
John,
the problem.
What I would
it's too protected.
What I would say is, look, 98% of all allegations never end in a conviction. Only 2% was sexual offending. 2%. Does that make 98% of people liars? No, it don't. It just means our justice system is beyond all reasonable doubt, and like all justice systems, it's open to collusion, corruption, and everything else. But here's a thing for you, right? You and your missus have a little child, and you live in a street, and you want to go out for the night. And years ago, you'd get a babysitter. They're not common these days, but back in the day, they were common, right? So you're told, right? There's two people that do babysitting. One of them, everyone says, brilliant, what a lovely person. Lovely girl, she's really good, she's kind, she's this, she's lovely, and she's great, and she's got a nice job, she's a nurse or whatever, and no one's got any complaint. And the other one, they say, well, don't have him, he's a wrong one, he's weird, he's strange, there's rumours about him touching kids and all that. Well, if we go on the premise, well, he's innocent, we'll have him then.
You've got to use your wits. You've got to have your wits about you with these things.
No, effing way am I having him? He's not looking after my kid, and that's that.
Yeah.
And so you've got, people say you shouldn't judge, but listen, let me tell you something. Yes, you should judge. You should judge, and you should judge more. And I'll tell you for why.
Yeah.
Every time you go home at night, especially women, on their own, they get into a train, they judge that.
Oh, you've got to use your discernment. Discrimination is important. People think the word discrimination is a bad word. That is the most useful tool we have to discern danger, to discern who's going to attack us, you know. Without that skill, then we're in trouble.
And then otherwise you'll end up like that idiot from The Guardian who thinks, oh, this is creative fun. Watching a man who's got...
it's disgraceful.
Who's got a social media account of pure perversion, you know, sexual offending against young boys, and say, oh, it's all right for kids. What is wrong with these parents?
Yeah.
Take your kids to the park. Take them for a swim. Why watch a grown man who's got propensity to sodomise young boys dance around in a jockstrap? Are you mental?
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this interview so far with Jon Wedger. If you'd like to see the remaining 40 minutes of this interview uninterrupted, where we talk about the 27 Club and the real reason these musicians died at that age, we talk about Sam Smith, his music videos and how he's pushing a satanic agenda, also Madonna, her referencing of paedophile code words in her videos, plus the Hampstead cover-up where the children outed their dad as part of a murdering satanic ritual group. If you'd like to see all this and more, consider joining my Patreon and becoming a premium member. That way you can watch the full-length interview and always watch the full-length interviews each month, plus you get bonus access to the videos deemed too naughty for YouTube, which were deleted. You get exclusive access to that archive as well each month. So to visit my Patreon, see the link in the description below. I'll see you there, guys. Cheers.